Look, this week I only have a handful of updates. What I'm finding is that due to the seasonality of exploration, there's not a lot of news out there. Okay, nobody's been drilling in a significant way, and really the places that work is being undertaken are generally warmer parts of the world right now, and that would be the southern hemisphere. Okay, so this story in particular, Mogotes, which is down in Argentina, actually straddles the Argentinian Chilean border. The guys have been very busy developing new targets down there. They've actually done a lot of work in the past few months. And, I'm going to couch this by saying I really like to see solid field work done before money is spent on drilling. Okay. It's one of my big pushes is I like to see all of the homework done. In other words, all of the data collected that's needed to maximize the potential for a drill hole to be successful in discovering a new ore body. And quite frankly, the work that these guys are doing is exactly in line with that. Okay, and I commend them for it. I know that money's been tight in the markets lately, but they have some money and they've got enough money to certainly carry forward. They've cleaned up their land position recently. They got 100% control over the entire land package now. They've added new property to the tenement package recently. That's very critical. And I think this company is in really good shape. Will they drill this year? You know what? It's getting late in the season now. If you think about it right now, it's spring here in North America. Okay, what does that mean? It means it's fall. It's the equivalent of early October down in this part of the world. And that means it's going to get chilly soon. I'm not saying I know whether they're going to drill or not this year. All I can say is it's going to be tougher and tougher as time goes on. My hunch is it'll probably be around, say, September, October, our time this year before we see the company drill. But that's fine. That's fine. They've got a lot of good work coming out. This is really just the first announcement of a lot of announcements to come, I think. And it talks about some of the work that they've done at this Cruz del Sur and Stockwork Hills target. They've identified 2 drill targets now with very, very good data. Let's look at the next slide. All right. First of all, location. Look, this map shows you the land package that Mogotes has. It includes the blue, kind of teal blue tenement package. That white tenement that you see there in the northwest, that has recently been added to this. So that is also under control of Mogotes. And you can see right to the north, we have Filo del Sur, or del Sol, and then Jose Maria. Look, Jose Maria is kind of off to the side, off trend, but it is a significant discovery. And then do not forget that NGEX is further to the north yet. And they've got some very substantial porphyry discoveries in their portfolio as well. Okay, so basically everything to the north of Mogotes represents several $billion between the money that was paid by BHP and Lundin to acquire Filo, and then the valuation of NGEX right now is multi-billion dollars. We're talking about a very, very lucrative camp here. Okay, this is not a lightweight target or district by any means. This is where there's a huge center of gravity right now in terms of development. I think BHP and Lundin are going to fast track Filo. I think you're going to see a lot of activity for years to come. But look at where Mogotes is. They have the rest of the belt here. There's just a smorgasbord of targets on their property that are all very, very similar in nature to those to the north. So should we expect a discovery? Look, I do think so. I think that this company is one of the few that really has that kind of portfolio that says, yeah, this could be a major, major discovery. Let's hope it's equivalent to some of the ones we've seen up to the north. Okay, now they've been doing work across the whole package, including the new tenement there, but they're clearly going to release information in pieces. Okay, and the first news that we have here is around this Cruz del Sur target and the Stockwork Hills target area, which is down in the south area. It's a little bit lower elevation. This is pretty high country, but this is a little bit lower. In fact, it's very similar from what I've heard to Jose Maria in terms of its elevation and its the style of target. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's go to the next slide. First of all, we've now zoomed in. We've zoomed in right on top of that target. So the Cruz del Sur and Stockbridge Hills target area is now shown in this image. You can see the geophysics, including magnetics. So we have really a combination of geophysics shown in this. But notice the new strong magnetic image or magnetic data they have up there in the north at what they call Target 1. Okay, that really looks intriguing. That is a very well-defined target of high magnetism. Why would it be high magnetism? Well, look, magnetite veining is often a common component of the core of some high-grade porphyry, especially in this part of the world. And I think this is a very good indication that they've now got a very discrete, very well-defined target that they can go in and drill. Okay, so that's Target 1. Notice there were historic holes here. Past drilling was not quite in that target area, which is interesting. Nonetheless, it did hit anomalous metal. But look at what they have now. They have a very clear target in hand. So that's very promising. They did do trenches. We'll talk about those here in a second. And then Target 2 is also shown on this map. It's the second oval more to the southwest there. And Target 2, while it doesn't display the same magnetic feature, I don't know that they did the magnetics here. They did some trenching over this, and they got some really strong results that have defined a new target there. Okay, so let's talk about Target 1 briefly here. Look, over here on the left-hand side, you can see a clip from the news release, and it talks about the aspects of this target that are very important. First of all, it's shallow. To the top of that feature, to the top of that target, magnetic target, is less than 300 meters or approximately 300 meters below surface. That's relatively shallow. If you look at the drilling that's been done up at Philo, like at Aurora and things like this, it was a deep target. It's about 500-600 meters down to the top of it, and then they'd have to carry on drilling for another kilometer or so past that. But this one is a bit shallower, so that's a big plus. You can notice the elevation is a reasonable elevation. 4,300 meters is not bad in this country. It does have a very large footprint. You can see the geophysical expression of that indicates that it could be a sizable porphyry target. When I say sizable, if you look at the size of that, you could see hosting several hundred million, maybe even 1 billion tons, something on that scale. Not guaranteeing it, just saying that's certainly in the realm of possibility. And it's defined by this strong magnetic anomaly, but it's also highly chargeable. Okay, so in the IP survey, it also is expressed as a very highly chargeable rock. Why would it be chargeable? Probably because it has disseminated sulfides, particularly pyrite, scattered through it, and that's a very, very, very positive sign. It's also strongly conductive. In the MT survey, which is a measure of the ability of rock to conduct electricity, it's shown to be relatively conductive. And I found that some of the bigger, like more compelling porphyry targets that I've seen tested have that kind of MT signature. So I'm very encouraged by that. Now, importantly, the company did some trenching here, and they actually got some really nice results. They didn't open up humongous trenches, but they did some relatively, short trenches, but also very well targeted trenches. You can see CDST4 there. Wow, 33 meters, 0.64 gram. That's not bad. That's 0.02 ounces per ton. And it includes a little bit of higher grade material, 3 meters at 2.4. Now, why would you see gold here? Well, I've been talking about this being a porphyry. We're probably seeing the upper part of the porphyry system here, kind of the epithermal regime, which is where you would find precious metal. Okay, now the other trench there, CDS extension, 12 meters of 0.7 gram gold, again, very strong numbers. That's telling me you got a nice stout mineral system here, and I think we're going to see a real good drill target here. Basically, I think we're going to see some exciting news out of this once they do get to drilling it. Okay, now we're going to go to the next slide so we can look at the second target. Go forward, please. All right, here you can see this is now a cross section. We can see in cross section both targets 1 and 2. So first of all, look at that magnetic anomaly. That is coincident with the IP resistivity or IPMT. That is just as compelling as I've ever seen. I mean, that's just a dead ringer for a porphyry target. Notice that the samples, the trenches that I spoke about, are sitting right above that magnetic feature. I think this is a walk up and drill target at this point. Now think about this for a second. If they had tried to come in here and drilled without having this data, they might have poked holes off to the left or to the right of that feature, and they would have missed. They would have gone away saying, gee, we saw a lot of good alteration, but we didn't hit, such is life, whatever. Let's get out of here. No, that's not what they're doing. They now have a really good target and they can test it. Okay, so patience will pay off. I would say target 2, less defined in terms of magnetics, but boy, that geochemical expression at surface is really compelling. Here we see a relatively shallow target depth, so it's maybe 350 meters down to the top of the target. It is the same elevation as target 1, so it's about 4,300 meters. But notice the trench results down here. Now this is interesting because in this case there is significant copper in the trench results as well. So it smells a little bit more like you're deeper in the system. You're basically getting down into the porphyry part of the system rather than the epithermal part like we saw over in target 1. We have 147 meters of 0.2 gram gold, 600 ppm copper. That's not too bad, guys, including 12 meters of 0.29 gram gold and 0.32% copper. Look, for the halo of up above a porphyry, that's not bad at all. Could this all be one system? Yes, that's my hunch. Okay, so I know what the company hasn't really portrayed it like that, but my gut says that target 1 and target 2 are, basically connected. Okay, there's something like they're all part of one bigger mineral system. Okay, what does that mean? Don't know. Maybe there is, like they say in their slide there, a conceptual deeper porphyry target that's driving all of this. We'll see. Okay, but they have really good drill targets now, well defined. They won't just go in, waste some money drilling holes willy-nilly. I think they have something they can hang their hat on. Okay, but we got to be patient, wait for them to get in there with the drill. Go to the next slide, please. The last image I want to leave you with is this one. This really got me excited. Okay, this is actually rock from the trenches. It's that CDS extension, so it's a target 1. And man, I'm telling you, like the veining in these is just to die for. That when you see little veins crisscrossing every which way like that, basically multiple pulses of mineralization, penetrating to this rock, that smells like a really strong porphyry system. Some porphyries, they come up and they kind of pop once. Others come up, boom, 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 boom. They just do it over and over, and that's where you get to your higher grade system. And what's intriguing here is that you do have some pretty good copper numbers here. Okay, like you're seeing both the copper and the gold. Again, you got the gold is kind of doing its own thing. It's kind of going up into the epithermal regime mostly. But the copper here is striking. Okay, and the list of trenches are at the top there. You can see the numbers. I really think they're onto something. And again, very patient and can't wait to see them drill this. All right, go to the next slide, please. Okay, Anglo Gold Ashanti. This news release came out recently. I think it was in the past 2 or 3 days. It's basically, it was actually a week ago. Okay, a little over a week ago. It's about Anglo Gold Ashanti designating 4 more projects in this portfolio of projects down in New South Wales as part of phase 2 for exploration earn-in. That means that Anglo is basically spending significant money on each one of these targets to advance them. Not only do we have the Duck Creek target, which I think drilling is actually currently ongoing. And maybe, who knows, maybe we wake up and see some news here pretty quick. But you also now have, what is this? It's Triangle, Crooked Creek, Nigan, and there's one other, can't find the name right off, but other targets here that are now designated for Anglo to spend money. Okay, this is a beautiful structure for a junior exploration company tackling blind porphyry deposits. A little junior company, especially in the market that we've had for the past few years, could absolutely implode trying to support a project like this. But by bringing in Anglo Gold and letting them spend the money, and notice that they even have, Anglo taking an equity stake. I mean, that's a vote of support. 9.9% equity position in the company. Like, this is basically a vote of confidence from Anglo. And I think the team should be commended for doing such an excellent job packaging this. Now, do we have a discovery to talk about yet? Not quite, okay, but this tells me that the company has multiple more opportunities to see that discovery made. And let's hope that Anglo drills a hole into one major porphyry copper gold system down there. We know there's big systems down there. Look at Cadia. Cadia is was a flagship of Newcrest, now under Newmont. It's a major mine that's going to go on for decades. These are mega deposits. They're on an elephant hunt, and I think they have the right structure. I think this is, if anything, a model for other companies to follow. All right, go to the next slide. Okay, Electrum came out with news around their first phase drilling in Serbia. It's a bit disappointing, you got to say, that basically the two drill holes that they drilled did not replicate. It didn't really even explain the anomaly that they saw at surface. They saw a stout copper gold anomaly. What did they hit? Okay, they drilled two holes, basically one going east, one going west, underneath the copper gold anomaly. The anomaly was well defined with geophysics. Looked like a beautiful target, but such is life. Okay, sometimes this happens. Now, what did they hit? Well, they hit a large interval or large intervals of skarn. Skarn is basically thermally cooked rock that is usually proximal, like usually somewhere around an intrusion. And it does have mineralization. I'll talk a little bit about what they did encounter for mineralization here in a second. But it's not a complete miss, okay? It's not a complete miss. It just didn't deliver that instant discovery that we were all hoping for. Okay, so lots to think about, ponder here, but maybe the company, especially given it has support now from this BHP Explore Accelerator program, can regroup, can reanalyze this target, reanalyze its approach, look at other targets around the property, and maybe they find something even better. But let's talk a little bit more about the drilling. Go to the next slide. Here's the target. Again, this is the contoured colors that you see there are geochemistry. So it was a very strong copper gold anomaly. I think in this case, the copper is what's being contoured there. Very stout, very sizable copper anomaly. And they drilled right underneath the darn thing. Okay, so they got one hole. The top one basically goes from the west to, that's where it starts and is inclined to the northeast. And then the other one over here starts in the east and is inclined to the west-southwest. Okay, so they basically both go under that copper anomaly, but they didn't really explain it. I'll say that. Like, yeah, lots of skarn, but they didn't see stuff similar to what was seen at surface. Okay, so that's a bit of a mystery. I got to say, that's a bit of a mystery. I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe they drilled under something. Maybe it's coming in sub-horizontally or something like this. Don't know yet. Don't know. Let's go to the next slide and look at what they did hit, though. Okay, so up at top, they talk a little bit about the mineralization they did hit. They did hit some numbers. Okay, it's not like it was completely barren, but the gold was ranging, 0.1, 0.5 gram, somewhere in that range, in just 20 samples out of the program. I think the highest sample is at 1.65 gram per ton gold. Again, it's not barren. Okay, it's not barren. It's just not what we all hope to see. Okay, it does say that the mineralization, the gold mineralization, was in skarn. Right, that's telling us we're near something. We're near some intrusion somewhere, and they need to do more work to better understand where that thing is. Silver is also anomalous, up to 109 grams. It's not bad. And then copper was up to basically 3,090 grams, or ppm is about 0.3% copper, okay? And you can see in the photos down at the bottom, yeah, the rock looks very well cooked up. I mean, it is thermally altered. And even that sample at the very bottom, you can see chalcopyrite and stuff in it. So it is not dead. It's just not quite what we thought it was going to be. And I think the company needs to do some more work. Okay, they do have money, fortunately, through that BHP program. I would really love to see them step back, do some more good science, see if they can figure out where this intrusion is that's driving this skarn mineralization. Maybe they come back and test it again. All right, such is life. Let's go to the next slide. All right, newfound gold. This is a story that we've been talking about for nearly 5 years, I think now, or maybe even over 5 years, can't remember, but a long, long time. And this company has drilled an endless stream of drill holes that have hit high-grade mineralization. Okay, what is this system? It's an epizonal orogenic gold system. We've known that from day one. We knew it was a shallow, high-grade orogenic gold system. And from the first hole, which I think was 19 meters of 3 ounces or something like this, we've seen just an endless stream of high-grade intercepts out of this project. Okay, so I'm going to point something out, and I'm going to just be very frank about the first 2 lines there. Okay, indicated and inferred mineral resource. You look, think, okay, 18 million tons, grading 2.4 grams. Okay, that's not quite anywhere near what we've seen in drilling. Okay, that's a bit of a head scratch. It does amount to 1.39 million ounces. Not bad. That's pretty good. Inferred mineral resource, 10.7 million tons, 1.77 gram per ton gold. That's about 0.61 million ounces. So, if you combine those, yeah, we get 2 million ounces here. But the grades, weighted grades, somewhere around 2 grams, we'll go. All right. What happened? I'm going to tell you, this is one of these cases where I think there's going to have to be some hard looking at the system and how it's been modeled, how it's been treated, how it's been drilled. Do I doubt the geology of it? Not one bit. Okay, I've followed this program. I was a director of the company for like the first 2 or 3 years. I didn't agree necessarily with the company just drilling ad nauseum like it did. It drilled, I think, 700,000 meters or something like this. But this doesn't make sense. Okay, to me, how do you have the Mother Nature telling you you have a high-grade gold system? You should treat this as a high-grade gold system. Okay, you resource modeler guy or gal needs to treat this as a high-grade gold system, and they have not done that. They took this and they basically modeled it using, we'll call it a conventional block model. It's, I think, a 5 by 5 by 5 meter blocks, and they took it and they made it into a low-grade system. That's interesting. Okay, now I know Eric Sprott did a video recently. He talked about the experience at Fosterville. When the high grade was discovered at Fosterville, and this is especially after Kirkland picked up Newmarket, there was a lot of angst about whether a resource could be put to that deposit. Nobody had experienced high grades like that before. And the first approach was to just top cut, basically cut the high gold assays, because they didn't want the high grade influencing the end result. It just made people queasy to think that the high grade was driving the resource and reserves. Okay, how did they top cut it? It was a bit arbitrary, I got to say. Like, I watched the whole process, and they had these arbitrary top cuts, and they kept, as they mined more, they got a little bit more comfortable, and they started lowering the top cuts, or excuse me, started with a lower top cut, and they started raising them as they saw that the gold was actually there. Oh, wow, gee, who figured? Okay, but the nature of people, many people, especially in resource modeling, is to take high grade and just try to make it go away. Like, it's too spooky to deal with. Okay, and I'm not saying they made it go away entirely here, but they've done some stuff here that did not treat this in a way that I would think some other resource modelers might. Some people who might say, this is a high grade gold system, let's model it as such and see what we come up with. Okay, I know people watch this video from time to time. I did meet the new management of the company here recently. I guess I would throw this offer out. Once you guys in management feel like you have kind of, a handle on everything that's happened here in the past few weeks as this resource has come out, I would love to see a 3D model that compares the drill intercepts, the modeled veining that was done. I know there was detailed, meticulous modeling of the veins, the high grade veins themselves. I would love to see that. And I would also like to see the block model, because what I like to do as a geologist, when a resource comes out like this, I love to sit there and play with the 3D model for hours and hours and compare with my eyeball. Okay, I like to compare the drilling, the actual geology, the veining in this case, and what the blocks say in terms of what gold is there. Okay, and if I could do that, I could actually come back on this video maybe in a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, something, and I could talk about this more. But right now, this news release doesn't cut it for me. Okay, they've basically said, oh, we've taken a very high grade, delicate orogenic gold system, and we've made it into a big, blobby, low grade system. 18 million tons. Yeah, weird. Okay, 10 million. Yeah. So we're talking nearly 30 million tons of rock here. Hello. The gold in this system is probably contained, most of the gold in this system, probably contained within less than 10% of that, something like that. It's a high grade system. I don't understand. Don't understand. Just doesn't make sense. Does not equate. Go to the next slide. Okay, and here's further evidence for that grade tonnage by cutoff grade. Okay, what is this looking at? Okay, it's got both indicated and inferred resources. And then they've used various cutoff grades over there that on the far left, each one of those numbers is basically a cutoff grade where they can see how many tons, how many, and how impactful it is on the grade of the material, as well as the gold inventory, the gold metal contained. Now, notice that as you go from like 0.3 gram cutoff to 0.4 to 0.5, there's not that big a change. Okay, there's very little change in the number of ounces. Okay, so first of all, that tells me right there's a whole bunch of tons in the 0.3 to 0.5 gram range, in that cutoff range, that are just basically fluff, nothing. It shouldn't even be part of the model. That's goofy. Okay, like whatever. Okay, even when they go down to 2 gram cutoff down there at the bottom, look at that. You got effectively 890,000 ounces, which is about 3/4 of the gold is within that 2 gram or above cutoff. Okay, again, are we treating this right as a geologist, a smart person who's modeling a high grade deposit? Are we really treating this in the right way? Don't know. I think it's up for debate. Okay, now it's a little bit less impactful down there in the inferred. The inferred, you can see, still at 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, there's very little change in the amount of gold that's contained in that. And then when you jump to 2 grams, there is a drop. That's about 40% of the gold that's in the top. Okay, maybe I'll give you that, whatever. But still, this is a high grade system. Why did we come up with a big tonnage low grade number? Doesn't make sense. Makes the mining industry look a little goofy in my view. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is the sum total of information we've been provided about the methodology and parameters, as well as the way they treated high grade in this system. And I think it's really important for investors, retail investors especially, to start learning this stuff. Okay, I got bad news for you, but if you want to invest in mining, you need to understand this stuff, at least to a degree where you can understand what they're saying and why it might have had an impact on this. Okay, first of all, they did use the 0.3 gram cutoff as their cutoff grade for the maiden resource here. All right. Now, looking at and they have the minimum width of 1.8 meter. It's interesting because so basically they've got a minimum mining width of 1.8 meter. I guess that would be for underground, presumably. But then they talk down below there about using 5 by 5 by 5 meter blocks. Okay, so in the open pit, they're basically using very big blocks for veins that we know are a meter or two, and this is just the nature of the beast. Okay, but they did not apply a wireframe of veins and the grade within the wireframe model, say, to actually figure out the amount of gold that's in that geologic feature, that veining. Okay, they didn't bother. They just said, "Nope, we're going to treat it like a block model," and here we are. Okay, all right. Where would it go with this? Well, I'm going to take you over here to the high grade restriction, because this I think is most impactful. They say within the AFC, that's Appleton Fault Zone, core high grade restrictions were applied with the restriction process involving two key components: grade restriction threshold. Okay, what they're saying is they capped it. Okay, obviously. Did they say what they capped it at? No, it's not here. So you guys as an investor, especially retail, sorry, I'm using that term, but that's, it's a fact of life. Okay, you are not being given much information to go on here. Okay, how did they cap it? Did they take anything above 30 grams and knock it back to 30? Don't know. Did they take everything above 50 grams, knock it back to 50? Don't know. Did they have some statistical approach? Don't know. They didn't say it in here. Shame on them. Okay, they should have. Okay, I know that it'll come out in a report, but they should have it in this doggone news release. Doggone it. And that's really disappointing. Disappointing to see this level of reporting around how they've treated high grade, because this is a high grade system. All right. Now, they also restricted the search dimensions. Okay, so basically they're saying, okay, we're going to chop high grade numbers down to a certain level. Okay. But then we're only going to let the computer model that out for a restricted distance, because we don't feel comfortable. We don't feel comfortable that computer should be able to project and maybe connect with high grade in other holes. That's crazy. It's just crazy. So they basically constrained it. They said, no, we're not going to let that high grade wander off from that drill hole, basically, in terms of computer language. Wow. Okay, so this is doubly capped in my view. I mean, basically, they've capped the high grade, and they've capped the ability of the computer, or the search ellipsoid, to actually look out and start connecting. What does that mean? It means a lower outcome. Okay, and this is what happened with Kirkland Lake at Fosterville. They got in there and they started mining, and lo and behold, the gold was there. They started seeing way more gold than they thought, and then they started to feel more and more comfortable, and they stepped back up into it, and they actually got by the end of the tenure that Kirkland had there at Fosterville, they had a model they could reconcile pretty good, but not in the beginning. They abused the high grade to the nth degree because they felt very uncomfortable, and I think we're seeing the same phenomena here. I think if Eric Sprott watches this, I think he would agree as well. He mentioned some of the same points that I just made around Fosterville. All right, so what's the outcome here? Look, I'm going to wait till the 43-101 report comes out. I would love to see that model, the 3D model, where I could sit and study it. Maybe I could even show people on a video sometime. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, Novo. Novo's got money again. It did sell about 750,000, I think, shares of SCM last year, which raised cash, and it's badly needed cash. It gets them back into exploration mode. We picked up 3 projects. I'm a director. Picked up 3 projects in Australia that I think are high quality. Now, are these things that we're just going to commit to spending huge amounts of capital on? No, they're basically attempts to try to lock in one of the more prolific exploration targets out of this portfolio, and see if we can get some traction in the next exploration space. Okay, in this Tibu Bara RC program, Tibu Bara is in New South Wales. It's way up in the northwest corner. It's a very remote country, by the way. But fortunately, we have a highway here. You can see over in the map on the right-hand side. So it's reasonable access, thank goodness. Okay, but it is a poorly exposed region, but it has geology that's very similar to Victoria. The rocks here, very similar in age, very similar in geology, and we are, seeing signs of an epizonal type gold system at this project. We see very high grades in places. This is the first drill program that we've undertaken there. You can see some of the older results there. Some very good numbers have come out of this project. our team is doing a very good job remapping, resampling, and they've now started drilling these high-grade targets. And I'm very hopeful that we're going to see a discovery. Now, can I guarantee anything? Absolutely not. But I think this is a pretty high-quality project that if we, apply some brain cells, which my team has a really good ability to target, I think we can make a discovery. Okay, now we have others. Okay, we're going to go over to John Bull, which is over in far northeast New South Wales here soon. We'll test that in the not too distant future. And then we have the Onslow project, which is off into Western Australia. And that'll be tested a little bit further later in this year. But this is our first start. I'm going to go down to Australia in the next couple of months to see what's going on after they got some drill holes in the ground. Hopefully we get some good numbers. All right, go to the next slide. I think that might be it this week. Yes, it is a short week, but appreciate everybody listening. Hopefully everybody endures all the chaos in the markets here. Sometimes it's best to just close your computer and not worry about it for a little while. Anyway, that's what I'll do. Have a good weekend. Take care.